Good afternoon. Today, myself, Dr. J. Namrata Manohar, will be explaining about functions in C programming. Functions are an important construct in any programming language. We will discuss about what is a function, what are the types of function, what are the advantages of functions, and we will discuss some review questions, and I will be explaining certain resources which will enable you to execute your programs. This function is question number 40 of my first episode, which explains the tips to master computer programming applications. There I had given you 40 questions. Out of the 40 questions, functions is the 40th question. Now, we will see how are functions or user-defined functions defined and declared. A function is a block of code that performs a particular task. Example, adding two numbers, factorial of a number, average of numbers, maximum value of a series of numbers, etc. So in your program, suppose you want to find the factorial of a number and invoke this function a number of times. Then instead of writing it every time that you need it, you can write the function once and use it any number of times in your main program. So thereby it enables you to save the programming coding time and the lines of code of the program. So here you will see first the advantages of functions. What are the advantages? Code reusability. Since as I told you, you can write the function once and use it in your main program any number of times. That is why it provides code reusability. You are reusing the function any number of times in your program. So thereby it supports modularity. What is module? Module is nothing but a small piece of code which can be modified by itself, and by modifying it, it will not affect your other part of the program. And you can also rewrite it, extend it, or reuse it. That's why it is modular. It reduces the lines of code. Functions reduce the lines of code. Now, if you are in a particular program, if you are using this factorial, say the factorial of a number has 5 lines of code and you are using it 3 times. Instead of writing the lines of code, 15 lines of code, you will be writing only 5 lines of code. That is, you have reduced the lines of code to 1/3. So thereby the program has become compact. It is easy for you to debug. It executes very fast and compiles fast. Then you can also extend the program. Say you want to change the functionality of this particular function, you can always extend it. Then it is easy to understand the program and it is readable. Last but not the least, functions provide easy maintenance. In software, there is a concept called software development life cycle. So this software development life cycle, one of the stages of this life cycle is maintenance. Maintenance in software is testing, debugging, extending and modifying. Being able to test the program, debug it, extend and modify. That is called as maintenance. So these functions provide easy maintenance of the program. Now, let us take an example of the functions. I want to find out the program. You write a program for permutations, that is P of n comma r. P of n comma r. That is, example is, I have a ball of 5 balls with numbers. The balls have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to select 2 of the balls. So in how many ways can I select 2 balls? So that is given by number of permutations. Permutation n comma r. So here our n is the total number of balls, that is 5. R is the number of balls I'll be selecting at a time, that is 2. So P n comma r as per mathematics is factorial n by factorial n minus r. So here you are seeing where you have to use the factorial function 2 times. So instead of writing it 2 times, we'll write the function only once but invoke it 2 times. Now first of all, what is factorial? Factorial of the number 5 is 5 into 4 into 3 into 2, 1 is 120. So factorial of 1 is 1 only. So let us first write the function of fact. Int fact int n. Int n, this is the return type. I am going to return the factorial of the number to the main program. Fact int n. I want to find out the factorial of the number n. So if n is equal to 1, then return 1, since factorial of 1 is 1. Else return n into fact of n minus 1. What is n? N is initially 5. Then factorial of n minus 1, that is 4. So n into 5 minus 4. N into, 5 minus 1 is 4. N into 4. So factorial of 4 you have to find out. So what is that? 4. So 5 into 4. So this looping continues until this number becomes 1. Number becomes 1. So here n into fact of n minus 1 gives you the factorial of the number n. Now this is the functional part. This is the body of the function within the parenthesis. Now we will call it in the main function. This is the main function. Now here int n, that is total number of items. R is the number of items you will be selecting at a time. Fn stands for factorial of n. Fn1 stands for factorial of n minus r. So here I will declare the permutations I will declare as float p, because it is factorial n by factorial n minus 1. So now I have to accept the values of n and r. So printf, enter the value of n. Scanf %d ampersand n, enter the value of r, scanf %r. So here I have accepted n as 5 and r as 2. Now I have to find out Fn. Fn is factorial of n, that is the numerator of the permutations. Fn1 is fact of n minus r, that is the denominator of p. So p is equal to Fn by Fn1. Now that I have calculated the number of permutations, I will print out the permutations. Permutations of %d items, selected at a time is %f. So what is the output? NRP. So the output will be permutations of n items, that is 5 items selected, r items at a time is 20. So P is equal to 20. You have to print this statement here. Permutations of 5 items selected, r at a time is 20. The answer is P is equal to 20. You should get in the output. So this is an example. Now what are the types of functions? Functions basically are of two types: built-in functions and user-defined functions. Built-in functions already we had discussed in the previous episode, but still briefly I will explain in this episode also. But we'll be concentrating more on the user-defined functions in this episode. So user-defined functions are of two types again: without return value, with return value. Again, in without return value, we have with arguments, without arguments. With return value also, we have without arguments and one return value. We have with arguments and one return value. We will see these 4 types with syntax and examples in this episode. Now, what are built-in functions? Built-in functions are is a predefined function that is part of a programming language application of tool. Already we are using this header file stdio.h. Stdio.h is a header file which contains the built-in functions. So built-in functions are designed to perform some common tasks such as manipulation of data types and handling of input and output. Every software comes with its own package of built-in functions. And you should know how to use this built-in function. In C, we are using it by using #include stdio.h or #include mat.h. So here the functions are in C are stdio.h, mat.h, conio.h, ctype.h, time.h. Right? So we will see some of the important header files in C programming. The important files are stdlib.h, string.h, time.h, which enables you to manipulate the time, mat.h, ctype.h, and complex.h for complex functions. These are the important, but there are some more also header files. Now, here stdio.h, string.h, and mat.h we have already used. So as a need be, you can use time.h and complex.h also. Now we will see what are the user-defined functions, what is the syntax and how to use the user-defined functions. Now user-defined function is a function which is written by the user. User-defined function is a function which is written or coded by the user based on his necessity. So the syntax of a user-defined function in C is return type, function name, parameter list, which is called the argument, list of arguments, and this is the body of the function. Now, the return type can be any valid C data type. So here example is int. You can have int, float, char based on the return type that you want, the variable you want to return. Now, function name can be any valid identifier. Here we are finding the sum of two numbers A and B. So we are given the name of this function as sum. So based on the operation that you are performing on these arguments, you can give appropriate name as sum, average, max, like that. The parameter list specifies the arguments that the function takes as input. So here we are finding out the sum of two numbers A and B. So I am passing these parameters. This is the type of the parameter and this is the parameter name. These two are called the arguments also. I am passing these two arguments to the function sum. Now the body of the function comes within two flower brackets, which we will be seeing. If you keep a semicolon, that means it is the end of the function name declaration. This is called as declaration of the function. Now, first, user-defined functions are coded by users when it is needed to perform a particular operation repeated several times, right? Here I am giving you the practical application of it, right? Now, what is the practical application of this? Say I have the expression e of x is equal to 1 plus x by factorial 1 plus x square by factorial 2 plus x cube by factorial 3 and so on, with x being within the limits minus infinity to plus infinity. So if I want to calculate this expression, I need to invoke this factorial of the number several times. So I will write the factorial only once, but I will be using so many number of times. So thereby the program becomes easy, compact, easy to debug, executes fast. So we are writing the function of factorial only once, but call it any number of times in the program. Now, we have to make a note. The characters allowed in the C function name, that is identifier, only you can use alphabets, numbers and underscore. Also, the function name should never start with a number. It should never start with a number, right? So these are the rules for function name. Now, here we will see the type 1, that is no argument passed and no return value. So, no argument passed means the function will be given when there are no arguments here within the brackets. So, void, since no return type, so no return type, so that's why it is void. So, it is void. You have the function name, body of the function within flower brackets. So, here I am using void. I have written a function called great num. This is function declaration of prototype which ends with a semicolon. Now, how to invoke in the main program this function? So, int main, you call function call return 0, 0. Since I have given here return value int, I have to write this return 0. Now, here int main, I am invoking this function great num return 0. Now, what is this great num function? In this great num function, since it is not returning any value or not taking any arguments, but you want to find out the greatest of two numbers, accepting the numbers and finding out which number is greater and printing should be done within this particular function code only. So here I have int I comma j. Printf, enter two numbers that you want to compare. Scanf, percentage representative, accept I and j. Now, if I is greater than j, printf the greater number is I, else printf the greater number is j. So here we are not sending back any data to the main program. So you are only calling this program. So in this way, this is example of no argument passed and no return value. Now, no argument passed but returns a value. So because it returns a value, you have to give this return type. You have to give a data type. Now this data type, function name, body of the function, since you have to return, you have to use this keyword return here, return data variable. So here we have int. You are returning integer great num. So this is function declaration. Now here, what is the code? Int great num, int ij great num. Because I am returning great num, I have to declare this variable. You can say great num or z or abc, anything you can give in place of great num. Right? Printf, enter two numbers. You are accepting the two numbers, finding out which one is greater and based on great num. So if I is greater than j, great num is equal to I, otherwise great num is equal to j. Now I'm returning the result to the main program. So return great num. So this great num comes to the main program. So what is the main program here? Int main, you write declare variable of type variable x. So whatever variable type you declare here, that type only you have to declare here. Since the great num is integer, I am declaring int here, int num. So result is equal to great num. So this return type, whatever is the return value, will be stored in this great num. Printf, the greatest number is whatever is the variable. The greatest number is %d, return 0. So suppose I'm entering, for I and j, I'm entering 5 and 9, right? Since 9 is greater, then here it will print 9. The output will be 9. Suppose I'm accepting the numbers 5 and 2. Since 5 is greater, then here the output, the result will be 5. So this based on this, you have no argument passed but returns a value. No argument passed, no arguments passed but returns a value. So return is a important statement in this return. When there is a returns a value, you have to compulsorily have this return data type. And whatever is the data type you have declared here, that type you have to declare in the main and capture this return in that particular variable. Now, the third one is with arguments passed, but no return value. So, no return value, so it is void here. The function name, arguments, arg1, arg2, depending upon your logic, you accept that number of arguments, then write the body of the function. Now, int main, declare variable of type. Here you are having argument, whatever type this argument is, that type you have to again declare the variables in the main program and then call the function with the arguments. For example, we will see here void, no return type, so void great num int a, int b. This is the function declaration. Now in the main program, first let us see what this function we have written. Void great num int x, int y. Two numbers I am taking x and y and finding out the greatest of the number, right? So what is the logic? If x is greater than y, I am going to print that the greater number is x. Else, I have to print that the great number is y. Now, since there is no return type, the result is being printed in this program only. But I should call this function in the main. Here, I am not accepting the values of x and y. The values of x and y are taken in the main program. So, in the main program, I have int I, j. Printf, enter two numbers. I am accepting I and j. Then after accepting I and j, I will be passing the arguments to this function and invoke this function. Great num I, j. So this x and y are called as formal parameters. But this I and j are called the actual parameters which we will be calculating. So great num, suppose I have accepted 5 and 3. Right? 5 and 3. What will be the output? The output will be 5. The greatest number is 5. That's it. Because the logic is this. So here great num, the values which I want to compare will be given in the main program. That is called with argument passed and no return value. Now the fourth type and the final type is with argument passed and return value. So we have return type, data type x, you have the function name, you have the arguments, body of the function. Since there is a return type, you will be writing this return data variable. Now, whatever is the data type you are returning here, that data type variable you should declare in this, and also this arguments type also you should declare in this main function, right? And since this return data variable, you have to capture that in another variable of type x, which is of the same type. For example, we have int great num. Return type is int and the arguments are two, int x and int y. Now, if x is greater than y, I have to return x, else return y. So, in the main program, this x or y will be captured in another variable called result. Result is also of type int. So, here I am accepting two numbers, I and j. I and j, I am accepting the numbers, and result is equal to great num I comma j. I am passing these two numbers to to x and y. So this I is x, j is y, right? Then once I invoke this logic is executed and the result printf the greatest number is percentage d, that is result. So here what is it? Say suppose I have accepted the number 10 and 15. I is 10 and j is 15. Then according to this logic, the greatest number is 15. So here the greatest number is 15 will be printed here, right? So this is using return data type and argument. So wherever there is return data type, you have to have this data type and return statement in this function name. And this return has to be captured in another variable of the same type in the main program. Now, passing of parameters to, this is an important question in most of the exams they will be asking. Passing parameters to user-defined functions. You can pass parameters to a function in C using two methods. One is call by value, call by reference. So they will ask you what is the difference between call by value and call by reference. So call by value, a copy of the value is passed to the function and changes that are made to the function are not reflected back to the values. That is, the actual and formal arguments are created in different memory locations. So we will just see how this logic works. I'll explain to you using this example. Similarly, but call by reference, in call by reference, what is it? The address of the argument is passed to the functions, right? Not the values. You're not passing the values, but you're passing the address, right? So by using these addresses, you can modify your logic. So we'll just see taking an example. Now, this is call by value. Call by value, I'm writing a program to swap two numbers A and B. That is, I want to exchange the values of these numbers A and B. So, void, no return type, swap int A, int B. In temp. Temp initially, already we have seen the logic of swap in our previous episode. So, the same logic I'm using here. So, what is the logic? In temp is equal to A. That is, I'm moving the value of A to this temporary variable. Then, now that this value of A is there in this temporary variable, I can move B to A. So, A is equal to B. I'm making B. Now, B value is in A. Now, into B, I have to move A. So, B is equal to temp. So, now I'll be moving temp. So, this logic already we have studied in the previous program. So, now let us see how we'll use it in the main program. Int x is 10, y is equal to 20. So, after swapping, x should become 20 and y should become 10. So, here values of x and y before swapping we are printing, that is 10 and 20. Then values of x and y, you are invoking the function swap xy. Here you are invoking the function swap xy. After swapping, what will the value be? 20 and 10. Now, we will see how this call by value works. How this call by value is working. Now, this is the main program where I'm calling this int main. Int A is equal to 10, int B is equal to 20. Int C is equal to, say, add. I'm saying int C is equal to add A comma B, printf percentage D C. Or see here, I'm here instead of add, we have to use the variable swap. Sorry. Now here this is a program for adding the two numbers. Okay. So it's an example for adding the two numbers. Before adding the two numbers, A is 10. A is stored in the memory location 100. B is stored in the memory location 200. And this variable C is stored in the memory location 300. Now, once you add 10 and 20, the result is 30, right? Now, here this result is 30. So, in here what we are having, now we are using this add variable. So, in 1000, if you call by value, this address of x, this is x and y. These are the formal parameters. This is the actual parameters. A and B are the actual parameters and x and y are the formal parameters. X is stored in the memory location 1000, Y is stored in the memory location 2000, Z is stored in the memory location 3000, right? So when you're calling this by value, this memory location 1000, it will contain the value of X, that is 10. 2000 will contain the value of B, that is 20, and thereby the result of Z will be 3000, right? So this is a function which you are invoking in your main program, right? So this is how the values will change in these addresses, right? The addresses will remain the same: 100, 1000, 200, 2000, 300, 3000, right? So these are the addresses of formal parameters and addresses of the actual parameters. This is call by value. Now we will see how call by reference will vary. In call by reference, we will be managing the addresses. We will be managing the addresses. Now here this is a void swap. Here when you're managing the address, you need to use this star x. This is called as pointers. If you have not done studied about pointers, you can wait for my next episode where I will be explaining about pointers, right? So addresses in C are manipulated using pointer. A pointer is a variable that stores the address of another variable. So here we have int star x, int star y, int z is equal to star x. So this is the swapping. This is the swapping logic. Here we have temp is equal to star x is equal to star y is equal to z. So main program, int a is equal to 10, 20. I'm accepting the printing the values before swapping, that is 10 and 20. I will invoke swap. So when you're call by reference, when you call, you should use this ampersand a, address of A and address of B. That you are calling the swapping the addresses of A and B. Here you will be changing the addresses, not the values, right? So printf values of A and B after swapping A and B will be 20 and 30. Now let us see what happens in the memory. What happens in the memory? See, in the main program you are having A, B, 10 and 20, and you are swapping ampersand A and ampersand B. So A is stored in the memory location 100, the value 10. B is stored in the memory location 200 with the value 20. Now, these are the actual parameters. These are the actual parameters. Now, these are the formal parameters, that is the memory. So, here what we are doing, X is stored at the memory location 100. But what X will contain? X will contain the address of A. What is the address of A? 100. Address of A is 100. So, X stores the address of A because you have given star of X, right? Now, similarly, Y will contain the address of B. What is the address of B? What is the address of B? Address of B is 200. So, address of B is 200. So, when you are swapping these, the addresses will be swapped. Address of A will be swapped to 200. Address of B will be swapped to 100. So, automatically B becomes 10 and A becomes 20. So, by swapping the address, you will be changing the values, swapping the values. So, this is the logic where, so here address is stored, address is swapped, not the values are swapped. This is called call by reference. Now, nesting of functions. This is another concept which C permits. That is, C language allows nesting of functions. That is call one function inside another function body. We must be careful by using nested functions because it may lead to infinite nesting. That if you don't use the write the body of the function properly, it might keep on repeating itself again and again, and it might hang the program. So here we have a function 1. And you're writing the body of the function. In the body of the function, you're calling another function 2. So here again, you're writing the body of the function 1. So within another function, you are calling another function. So when you are writing such programs, you should be very careful what is the logic you are writing and how you are ending the program and how you are coming out of the program, right? So here we have X, that is warning. What is the warning? You have to take if function 2, right, also has a call for function 1 inside it, then in that case it will lead to an infinite nesting. Because in this function 2, in the body of the function 2, suppose again you are calling function 1, then in function 2 you are calling 1, again function 1 is calling 2, again function 2 is calling 1. So this process will keep on repeating. It will never come out of this program. So it becomes an infinite loop, infinite nesting. Then they will keep calling each another and program will never terminate. So that's why you should be very careful when you are nesting the functions. Now, another important concept in C program is recursion, right? Recursion is the process of function calling itself inside it again and again. That is the same function being called again and again. Already we have used for factorial in the previous example. So we must have certain conditions in the function to break out of the recursion. Otherwise, recursion will continue to occur and infinite number of times, and the loop may never end or the program will never be terminated. So here in the function 1, you are calling again it's function 1 again. So here we will see this. You have int factorial int x declaration, int a and b. Here you're calling factorial a, right? And you're printing the factorial of the number, right? Now here in this factorial, again x into factorial of x minus 1 we have written. Already we have written in this previous. In this, we have already used this factorial. In this factorial, we have written, in fact, again, you're calling fact. So this is called as recursion. A function calling itself within itself. This is called as concept of recursion. This is an important question, and compulsory you will get a question in recursion. What is recursion? And give an example for recursion. So here int factorial of int of x. So int r is equal to 1. If x is equal to 1, return 1. Else you're calling back the factorial again, recursion again. So the function calls itself and you're returning the value r because you're having int, right? So this is about recursion, a function calling itself within itself again and again. Now here are some review questions I have given, like which keyword is used to transfer control from a function back to the calling function. Functions cannot return more than one value at a time. Is it true or false? A function can be defined inside another function. True or false? Usually recursion works slower than loops. True or false? Dash variable is used to initialize only once and remains into existence till the end of the program. In C language, all functions except main can be recursive. What is the default return value of C function if not specified explicitly? Eighth question, is it possible to give arguments in the main function? Like this is an important question. You'll be asked in all competitive exam and main exams. Then choose the correct statements about C language. Pass by value. Pass by value copies the variable value in one memory location to another. Pass by value does not use pointers. Pass by value protects your source or original variables from changes in outside functions or called functions, all of the above. You have to select the option. Right? 10th one is a recursive function can be replaced with dash in C language. You can replace it for loop, while loop, do while loop, all the above. What is the output of the following function? You have to see. Right? So here They are given the answers, but I expect you to first evaluate the values, and then you check your answers whether it is right or wrong. Now here, as I told you, I will explain to you the resources. The first set of 1 to 8 are the episodes that I've already discussed on C programming, which you can see in my website and then on my YouTube website. And the second one is you have a programming with editor, www.w3resource.com, or you can go to programiz.com or w3schools.com. All of these give you examples and also editors. So whenever you write your code, you can type that code, compile it, execute it, and see whether your logic is right or wrong. Thereby, you will be learning your and improving your programming skills. Right? So you may please try out these exercises. Thereby, once you learn the concept, any doubts, you can always contact me on my mail ID jnm7064@gmail.com or 99486 or you want to do any projects in BE or ME documentation or quantitative aptitude coaching for CA